Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Thursday, August 28th, 2025. Barreling into the Labor Day weekend. Tomorrow will be the Friday of the Labor Day weekend, which is just wild. Carney is a bad negotiator, according to Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert. He was saying, listen, Mr. Carney, starting your negotiation with, we've already got the best deal in the world, is probably not a very good place to start, you idiot. So it's pretty funny. We've got a wildfire update from, oh man, I can't remember where the wildfire update is from, but it is, from Nova Scotia, and there are more fines, and it's interesting because I don't think there's any justification for any of this at all, but what else is new, right? Catholic school shooting comes on the same day evidence of Obama and his national security team misled the American people. So they've published a 2020 report that proves this, and on exactly the same day a trans person shoots up a Catholic school, and everybody's saying, listen, think of the trans people. It is very weird. It's a very weird situation. Trump removes emergency use authorization for mRNA vaccines and triggers a walkout of CDC top brass. So we've got all of that for you as well. Very interesting stuff going on there, because that's the United States making those, the United States and Trump himself creating all of this and now walking it back. That's very interesting. And so we'll see what happens with that. Shrinkflation and banking options for foreigners, but not Canadians. Do you want a 12% cash back credit card? You can't get one unless you're brand new to Canada. If you're not new to Canada, if you're just born here, 4% is the best you got. Weird, right? Very, very interesting. And I've been talking about this for a while, and it seems that the options are getting more blatant, more in your face, and that's not very good. Not very good. And Danielle Smith says Ottawa has siphoned $600 billion over the years from Alberta to be spent in liberal areas of the country, and she's been watching, and she's sick and tired of it, just like everybody else is sick and tired of it. So it's interesting. I still don't believe that Danielle Smith is going to do a darn thing to make Alberta independence happen. I think that Alberta independence is going to be stymied because whatever Canada is at this point does not want Alberta to leave. Alberta makes Canada a lot of money. And if Alberta leaves, then I think that the people who have control of Canada lose control. And that's the first domino to go. And that first domino may have already gone. All of that said, it's not a foregone conclusion that Alberta will leave. Does that make sense? So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to start in Alberta. Here's Rise of Alberta. It says, in March, Danielle Smith gave Mark Carney 6 months to act or face a national unity crisis. Her demands were clear. Repeal Bill C-69, lift the BC tanker ban, scrap the oil and gas emissions cap, end clean energy regulations, reverse the single-use plastic ban, and the net zero car mandate. Return carbon tax oversight to provinces. Guarantee Alberta export corridors in all directions. No export taxes or restrictions on Alberta oil and gas. End subsidies from Alberta to other provinces. Stop censoring energy companies. Fix Ottawa's mismanagement of Jasper and Banff parks. It's now been 5 months. Carney hasn't delivered on a single one of those things. He hasn't done it. Carney has not done anything. He has been completely ineffective, or 100% effective if your goal is to not get anything done. But if your goal is to actually follow through with the promises that you made during the campaign and do the things that you said you were going to do, big fat goose egg. He hasn't done anything. He's been completely ineffective. Now, it's my theory that he doesn't work for us. He lies to us every day. And so we shouldn't be surprised when we find out he lied about all of his election promises. And because he doesn't work for us, he doesn't owe us anything. He's not accountable to us. He's only accountable to the people he works for. And I think those are the globalists. And if you look at this from a globalist point of view, well, he's done a lot. He's made sure that nothing's happened. Canadians have not recovered their freedom or sovereignty, control of their government, control of their borders. In fact, the invasion's worse than ever, right? Just like in England. So weird. Lockstep or something like that. It's so strange. So Carney hasn't done anything, or he's been very effective at preventing Canada from stopping the insanity that has plagued it for the last decade. Here's Danielle Smith noticing, right? And Jeffrey Rath says, she sounds like she just came from an APP meeting. Wonder when she's going to join us. And she's getting control of the crowd. She's scrappy. She's saying, like, do you want the answer to this question? And here it is. Here we go.
What we're talking about tonight is Ottawa do you want to hear the answer? Ottawa overtaxing us. I mentioned that at the beginning of the evening, that our program costs are 70% of all tax dollars. We only collect 40%. Ottawa collects 60%, and then they use political means to transfer it. Alberta, year after year, has $20 to $25 billion that is siphoned out of our system to go to Ottawa so that it can be spent mostly in Quebec, but also in other places that vote Liberal. We have been watching this for years. $600 billion in the last 40 or 50 years that have been taken out of this province. You don't think we might be able to do a little bit more on social spending if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? You don't think we'd be able to cut taxes a bit if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? It is $5,000 per Albertan that every single year gets transferred out of this province for political reasons so that the Liberals can continue to spend it in places that vote Liberal. That is what is happening in the province and in the country.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So are we going to stop it? Yeah, come on, everybody. We're gonna go. We're not going to stop it. Okay, everything's just going to continue as it's been going. Yeah, it looks like. So even if you stop it, they lose their minds. The powers that be lose their mind. Donald Trump, and again, I don't know what Trump is. He appears to be trying to stop some things, but making other things way worse. So who knows? But even in that context of stopping some things and making other things way worse, people in blue states, governors of blue states, Tim Walz, all sorts of people are talking about how he's behaving erratically and he's crazy and he can't possibly do this and it's illegal. And then the courts come back and say, oh yeah, no, that's a rational thing. And like, it's not crazy. And actually, doing this is completely legal. And that implies that the other idea was, maybe wild and crazy. And so Trump is not behaving in irrational ways that I can see. And he's not behaving in, ways that are outside of his character up to now anyways. And so nothing has really changed as far as that goes, but they accuse him of being crazy. And so if you try and stand up and stop this stuff, you will be accused of being crazy. People will say, you're going to destroy the economy. You can't do this. You're going to destroy the economy. Everybody's going to die because of you. Everybody's going to starve because of you. And then you maybe will lose your certainty or something like that. And you won't have the courage to follow through on what you need to do. And so that's how they control you. But it's such an interesting situation. It doesn't matter if you have control of the government apparatus at this point, because the media will attack you, and then the school boards will attack you, the unions will attack you, the colleges and universities will attack you, the students will attack you, people will put on pussy hats and attack you. And it doesn't matter if what you're saying is like, listen, we should stop overspending on the credit card. We're spending $100,000 and the credit card limit is $5,000. And well, there's $95,000 there that we're just racking up on the credit card, and we don't have the means to pay for this. And also $90,000 of that dollars is going to Ukraine. So what? And people say, oh, you're pro-Putin, anti-Canadian, blah, blah. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And so it doesn't, if you oppose this, you will be the bad guy. If you know this, people who watch this show know this, because this show talks about this in a way that's real, in a way that the other people are not talking about this. And that's why I'm censored, just like anybody else who talks about things that are going on in a real way, in an unguarded way, I guess. And people like that get censored. And so leaders like that get removed, right? And so it's very, very frustrating because I don't see a pathway out of this. Let's talk about trade. Hey, here's Scott Adams, and I believe, Scott Adams, and he's the guy who created Dilbert, and he does like a morning coffee thing, and he just talks about the news. He kind of does what I do, but a little differently. He's not like Timcast. It's a different thing. But he talks to his audience every day, and he's noticed Canada, and he's saying, Mark Carney, you're a terrible negotiator. And he is. Not just because he says every second word, but he's a bad negotiator because, well, positioning. Here we go.
Another good news, apparently the U.S. and Canada are making progress in getting some kind of a permanent trade deal. Canada and the U.S. are heading toward, it looks like, resolving everything. But what caught my attention was Carney is bad at negotiating. Here's something that Carney said out loud in public in the context of still negotiating with the United States. He actually said that Canada has the best trade deals in the world with the U.S., and so he'd like to keep that situation. Now, here's some advice. If you're negotiating, you should never say, you've already given us the best deal in the world. Why would we give you anything else? If you just told us you had the best deal that anybody had in the whole world, which might be true, by the way, that's not much incentive for us to give up anything else, is it? It's like, let me see. So you've got the best trade deal in the world, is what you're saying, but you're asking for more? Why would we give you any more? You just said you had the best deal in the whole world. The world. Look how many countries there are. Have you counted the number of countries, Carney?
No.
It's a bunch.
Yeah.
Lots of countries. And you have the best in the world. You're not getting anything else.
This negotiation's done. Next. Wait, you want more? Give me a reason you want more. You won't give up supply management. You won't give up this. You won't give up that. You won't stop sending fentanyl in. You won't work with our DEA. The fentanyl czar is effectively neutered. Like, come on. The fentanyl, I'm insulted that the fentanyl czar still has a job and I still have to pay his salary for some reason. It's so crazy. So yesterday I was talking about LNG and somebody who works there was saying, hey man, here's some information and I appreciate it. Former member. And so the LNG stuff is all part and parcel of this trade. Trump is going out and making billion-dollar deals with other countries, multiple billion, hundreds of billions of dollars in deals in microchips and car manufacturing, in GE, General Electric's making washing machines and dishwashers in one of the states. So each one of these deals is billions of dollars injected into the United States economy. And so instead of doing any of those deals, Carney is hamstringing us and not allowing us to utilize and get to market our natural resources, the stuff that we should be able to pump out of the ground, like LNG, liquid natural gas, or natural gas that we liquefy. Pump it out of the ground, process it, liquefy it, do whatever needs to get done, send it on a pipeline to a ship or send it on a pipeline to a customer that doesn't even need to refine it, that can just take it and use it. And bingo, bango, bongo, you've got billions of dollars coming into the economy, right, with selling that liquid natural gas. And then you don't have to tax the citizens as much because you're making so much money on the front end, right? And so all of that is stuff that we're not doing. And in fact, we're doing it in a way that is, we're shipping it to Asia, which is the link that the gentleman who was letting me know about this. He's like, yeah, we're shipping starting in June. So June 30th, my birthday. The Global News says first tanker carrying LNG for exports departs northern British Columbia. So it's on a ship. It says LNG Canada says the tanker has begun its journey across the Pacific to bring Canada's first cargoes of liquefied natural gas to Asia. The tanker Gaslog Glasgow has departed Kitimat, BC, in northern British Columbia. British Columbia coast pilots say two of their members had previously boarded the tanker at Triple Island and navigated the vessel on a 15-hour, nearly 300-kilometer journey to Kitimat. LNG is natural gas that has been chilled to a liquid state so that it can be transported in specialized marine vessels. LNG Canada is a joint venture between Shell and 4 Asian partners, and its first phase is expected to produce 14 million tons of gas a year. No, it's super Canadian when you've got Shell and 4 Asian partners for LNG Canada. Yeah, that's super good. LNG Canada, you say? Yeah, sounds just like Canada. 4 Asian guys and a Brit. My gosh, Shell. Well, there's a big Shell headquarters in England. Anyway, I don't know which country Shell is actually from. Are they Canadian? I don't think Shell is Canadian. Anyway, it's been billed by the federal government in Canada as the biggest private sector investment in Canadian history. $40 billion between the port operation, the Northeast BC gas field supplying it, and the pipeline in between. This report by the Canadian Press was June 30th, 2025. So I just missed this or didn't understand the implication. But at the same time, if we've got tankers who are able to transport all of this LNG from the West Coast, we don't have anything, no kind of infrastructure to transport anything from the East Coast. And is there a plan to start that? Right. So I don't even think we can get LNG to the East Coast to supply Europe or anything like that. Yet, wouldn't that be a priority? If this is going to make $50 billion a year, $30 billion a year, whatever it is, however much money, $10 billion a year, right? However much money it would make to make a $40 billion operation worthwhile to build there. I'm sure that we could make a case for this and get it built, but it doesn't seem like it's a priority. If you definitely had a return, or like probably had a return, it's worth to take the risk, right? But Canada's not taking the risk, right? You spend $10, you're going to get $100. right? And every $10 you spend, you're going to probably get $100 with this very, very good product that people really want. And it only takes you $10 to get it out of the ground, but they'll pay $100 for it, right? And you just keep doing that, and they'll just keep giving you that money. $10 turns into $100. Why wouldn't you keep doing that? Why wouldn't you take the risk, right? And if it costs you $5,000 to get up and running, and then after that $5,000, it's $10 to run it, and then you get that $100, what are we doing, right? And it seems like everybody is just closing their eyes and they don't care. Here's CBC Watcher, and this is Pierre Poilievre talking about LNG infrastructure being built in Germany. In Germany, they can build it in less than a year, 200 days. In Canada, we can't even get started. Here we go.
If you look at Germany, the Germans built a natural gas plant in 194 days. In other words, they actually built it in that time frame, completely built in 194 days. Mr. Carney has been Prime Minister since pretty much the same period, and he hasn't even announced a single project that will be going forward. So he is a big talker and a small doer. So I'm not sure why it takes so long just to decide where we're going to carry out these projects.
He knows why it's taking so long. He definitely knows why it's taking so long. He's okay with it taking so long because it gives him more time to politic about it. Here's Tamara Lich, and this is another aspect to trade that we are mostly ignoring. Tamara Lich is, and I've highlighted this yesterday, this news that the RCMP started their investigation and then refused to share information or cooperate with their U.S. counterparts at the DEA, which has left the U.S. officials questioning the magnitude of corruption within the RCMP and the Canadian Border Services Agency. So Tamara is quoting Sam Cooper's article about the RCMP Superlab and the impact it's having in Canada and the United States with regards to our trade relationship. Here we go.
In a bombshell investigation that's rattled both Ottawa and Washington, Canadian journalist Sam Cooper has uncovered what U.S. officials are calling one of the most consequential policing failures in recent history. At the heart of the scandal is a fentanyl superlab hidden in the mountains of British Columbia, capable of producing tens of millions of lethal doses, and a Canadian federal police force that repeatedly refused to cooperate with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. Cooper's reporting reveals that the DEA provided intelligence to the RCMP in 2022, warning of shipments from China tied to a Health Canada licensed firm. Despite this, Canadian authorities refused to act until after the U.S. Treasury imposed sanctions a year later. Even then, the RCMP ran its own investigation, refusing to coordinate with U.S. agents who had developed the original case. In a bombshell
So there you go. That's pretty wild that they didn't do anything. Canada just didn't act. Canada's like, yeah, forget it, whatever. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. We won't do anything, and we'll see what the United States does. And a year later, the United States is like, hey, that's not cool. Don't do that. Raquel Dancho says Industry Minister Joly made several false and misleading claims tonight on Power and Politics, some so fanciful that you couldn't make them up. When asked by the CBC if the deal signed with Germany is a phony declaration that is unenforceable with no money attached, she just starts making things up. Check out the clip here. So here's just a short little one. Here we go.
Prime Minister has been in Europe, and we heard from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who has been, maybe not a huge surprise, but a bit critical of what's been signed over the last few days with the Prime Minister in particular. And he says that the one deal with Germany on critical minerals is a phony declaration that is unenforceable with no money attached, and he's coming home with nothing of consequence. What's your defense of the government's agenda over there in Europe? What do you say to Mr. Poilievre?
I think Mr. Poilievre needs to look at himself in the mirror. When he's describing what you just said, I think he's talking about his own policy.
Why do you say that?
Because ultimately, he, as the opposition leader, has been talking a lot, but with no action. Never did we hear him that we should get to 3.5% of defense budget. Never did we hear him talking about the fact that our armed forces should get a pay raise in order to recruit better and to make sure that we could support our strong men and women. Never did we hear that we should increase defense procurement to make sure that we build more in Canada. Never did we hear from...
Weird. What a weird position to take. He didn't roll out the plan that I wanted him to roll out, and so I think that he is invalid, basically. And I think that her position is, well, she just speaks, and I don't think she really knows what she's talking about, but she does speak talking points, right? She'll say what she's told often, I think. The food professor says with tariffs, Quebec will donate rather than destroy expiring U.S. alcohol, minister says. So here's a 70 of vodka. Drink it before Friday because it's expiring, right? Like, that's great. Wonderful. Donate the expiring U.S. alcohol in Quebec. That sounds like a terrible idea. And yet, Karen highlights the weird discrepancy, right, or conflict that is inherent in this. And Karen says, hilarious, Quebec will donate the alcohol, but excess milk, down the drain. Why nourish folks when you can intoxicate them instead? 2 million liters of milk just down the drain in July 2022, right? That's a lot. Million liters. How much less would I be able to spend on milk if they weren't allowed to dump it, right? If instead it had to go into the market, or if those farmers were just allowed to sell it or make it into baby food or something like that. Man, jeepers creepers. CBC Watcher is highlighting this, and this is talking about tariffs, and they're saying, listen, if tariffs are bad, if tariffs are bad for the United States consumers, and you're being critical of the United States for putting them on, but now you're putting them on Canadian consumers too? How does this make any sense? Right. It doesn't make any sense. Our leadership is insane. They don't make any sense. They're not rational. It doesn't make any sense. Here we go.
Talked about how the world is dealing with the Donald Trump tariffs, but Canada responded in a way that other G7 countries didn't, and as you write, paid the price. Some have been critical of the government stepping back from that strong position. You say it was the right move. Why?
Well, we've believed all along that if the argument you're making with the Americans is tariffs are bad for your citizens, bad for your consumers, bad for your economy, it doesn't make sense to put them on yourselves. And that's exactly what we were doing. And full shout out to people like Premier Smith and Mo and others who long have been saying this is not the best way to go. We found ourselves isolated with China being the only other country who has the capacity to play that game. We don't. I think the Prime Minister has never really been comfortable with inheriting the counter tariffs. He said it as far back as in January in London, I believe, when one of your colleagues, Rosie Barton and others, had asked him a question about that. And he said, and I quote, there are limits. He's right. When you're 1/10 of the economy of the competitor, you're hardly going to be able to go toe to toe with them. So.
But that was obvious from the start. Why even embark in this? Why have all the rhetoric of elbows up? Why do any of that? It's insane. And like, anybody with half a freaking brain understands that. If you're going toe to toe with somebody who has 10 times your resources,